I feel like we should start with some Biggie or Tupac for this one.
That was not prepared for that as
I didn't.
the next thing out of your mouth. So awesome.
Welcome, Devin. Thank you so much for joining us for the Catalyst for the Trades. You guys, for those of you that are joining live, we appreciate you taking time out of your hectic schedules right before the holidays. I don't know where you're located, but it's drizzly. For some reason, we decided to go back to the Pacific Northwest for the holidays because of
Oops.
family, but it's very gray. It's very rainy. Yeah. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Devin, thank you for joining us. Tell us a little
Th-
bit about Reignite.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. So Reignite Sales Solutions, we're actually it's really hard to put a label on it. So we started about 18 months ago after we left a large $100 million company, and we that day that I left and departed, it was like, man, I really want to do something. I really love training, coaching, helping with growth. There were certain individuals that I could help on kind of a smaller scale. And so I met with a company out in Kentucky, actually, who had been talking to me on a regular basis saying, hey, I need some help with some coaching, some training, et cetera. So that same day that I departed from my previous company, I ended up going down to Kentucky and started training with his company. And then from there, it just kind of evolved into we've done a lot of things. We've helped on Rehash. We actually had it in house for a while, shifted over and started focusing on helping people build it in house because that made more sense financially for the company. So we built out a specialty program for that. Then we started looking at in-home processes with technicians. We built out a process for that. Call center operations. We built out a process for that. So really, we do consulting, coaching, and training. But we have specialties and special people in each department that's kind of allowed us to grow and provide a better product, and we're constantly evolving. So does that summarize what you're asking there?
Yeah. So you decided to join the dark side, huh?
Yeah, essentially. Um,
Decided you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
yes, being it's funny. I really wanted to be an entrepreneur. Prior to, I always told myself I'd own a company before the age of 30. And I did. I started this at 29. I was very excited about that. And now, 7 months or 8 months, something like that, into being 30, and now I'm 100% the owner of Reignite as well. So I've actually acquired the total entity. So yeah, I feel very good about it. It's scary day in and day out. I'm sure once you get to your size, it doesn't get any better. It probably just gets worse, scarier. But
The problems are still there. They're just bigger.
yeah, just on a macro scale, just more stress. But yeah,
Well,
that's been great.
congratulations. Do you feel like
Thank
you
you.
have more? I assume you did it because you wanted more time, money, and freedom. Does it feel like you have it?
So I feel like I definitely have more money and I have more freedom. Time is something that I'm learning to leverage more effectively, but I think that I have to, and I'm sure you had the same result in the beginning. You have to sacrifice so much time up front
Yep.
to get that time back and buy that time back later.
Yeah, I called it rip off the band-aid.
Absolutely.
I feel like when I was in my early 20s, that I had a lot of friends that would say, "Oh, we're young and we need to enjoy our lives while we're young." And I was like, "F that."
Right.
Like, I want to get as much in and as much done as I can in the shortest window of time because I want to
Yeah.
enjoy life when I've got the money, brains, and know how to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like I planned my life really well for that. Going piggybacking on what you said, because I had my kids so young
Yeah.
that my second son will graduate high school when I'm 41.
Yeah.
And so I'll have two adults at 41 and be,
Yeah. I'm
so if I can hustle for the next 11 years.
I'm full on empty nester, I believe they call it. I
Yeah.
love
Do you?
I go into their house and they're the ones that are prepping holiday dinner. I
Yeah.
just sit back and chill.
Are you like those reels where you're just throwing your shoes wherever and, you
Oh,
know, tearing up the house? Yeah.
I walk in like this and they're
Yeah.
like, "Yes, ma'am, I'll get your wine."
There you go. I've, it's so funny. My father-in-law, the first Christmas after my first son was born, he he told us how he did his Christmas shopping. He looked for the loudest, most obnoxious, nonstop toys that he could find, and that's what he bought for my son. So he bought this fire truck that even if the slightest breeze went by, it would start making noise, and that was his gift to us. So
Do that. I absolutely love it. That's okay. The
yeah,
drum set, I'm sure, is next for the grandbabies.
I have a drum set out there now for my youngest. Yeah, it's God, it sucks,
Oh
but it's
my
great.
goodness.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is an interesting conversation, right? You and I both, we deal with a lot of entrepreneurs at a lot of different spaces and places, and points in their business. And I just got off a podcast with Dwight Miller. We were talking about EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, and just really that all challenges for companies are primarily the same across
Yeah.
the board, regardless of size. They might increase in scale and responsibility and liability,
Yeah.
but the challenges are the same. So I know you guys have really focused on nailing down some specific challenges that companies have at all sizes.
Mhm.
um, let's just talk about one, just right out of the gate. As a marketing agency um, owner, I struggle with the lack of attention and prioritization of leads that don't close, leads in general,
Yeah.
um, past customers, database of existing customers. How are you guys tackling that? That's We typically focus on new client acquisition, but
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that that existing database shouldn't be just as critical of a priority to the business owner. What are some of the things you guys
Yeah.
are seeing that are issues? What do you think the
Absolutely.
attention level is, and how are you addressing it?
Yeah, so that's actually a relatively, so thank you. That's a relatively loaded question. So I'm going to kind of go in parts because, there's a lot of things you can do with unclosed leads. And I think everybody gets so consumed with, like you said, acquisition of new leads. How do I acquire more? I need more, 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 right? And as you know, your marketer, like you guys, can only control so much, right? Some marketing campaigns are going to produce a whole bunch, some aren't going to produce as much. Your spend is going to go up and down. Things like the election are going to impact your overall spend and visibility. Things outside of the marketer's control is going to impact that. So all you can do is work with the leads that your marketer's already got you. And so you have those that are coming in. The problem is everybody focuses so much on what we call lag measures rather than lead measures. So they immediately go to, okay, we spent so much in marketing, we got so many leads on the board and we generated so much revenue. So here's my return on that ad spend, right? What they're not looking at, again, they're just looking at what can we produce from what our marketing is producing. What they're not looking at is, hey, over the last 4 or 5 years that we've been working with CI Web Group, they've built us a database of 8, 9, 10,000 leads. What are we doing to, you know, capture attention again for leads we already spent money on? How are we reigniting that database, right? How are we pulling from that gold mine, if you will? And then how do we effectively make sure that we're closing better on the front end? So there's a few ways of doing that. One is focus on specific lead measures, like how many appointments are we booking outside of our marketing? If we only have, 10 calls hitting the phone every single day and we're booking 8 of them, but I need 16 a day, where am I getting the other 8? Am I only working my guys 2 calls a day and sending them home? Or am I actively putting forth effort? What are my CSRs and call center doing with the time that they're saving on not receiving inbound calls? Get them focused on outbounding, get more leads on the board. If you're, I don't know what your cost per lead acquisition is, but let's say it's anywhere from $50 all the way up to $200, depending upon the campaign, or $400, depending upon what source, right? That $400 lead, if it's not coming in, you haven't spent that $400 yet, in theory, right?
Mhm.
So I can burn that by giving away a free tune-up instead of charging the $79 call fee, right? Or $150 that I charge for a tune-up, and I can just get calls on the board for my team. If I do that, I can control that. That's a KPI that I can control. What am I booked out in when it comes to capacity? How many calls are my guys generating? So the lead measures for that would be how many outbound calls is each one of my CSRs making? Okay, and if they're not on the phone with 100 to 150 people a day, I'm wasting time. They're playing on Facebook, Instagram, going to the bathroom, and talking around the coffee machine. That's what's happening. So that's one way you can maximize it. The next piece of it is, okay, our close rates dropped. Marketing's not producing as much because of the weather. We like to blame the weather. Man, it's so mild outside. Well, that's great, but there's probably more things taking place there. So you can do what's called happy calls. Reach out to all the calls that your guys ran yesterday and ask the customer, how was the experience and why didn't you buy? See if you can identify parts of the process that they're skipping. See if you can identify specific objections that they're getting stuck on so you can train around those objections to maximize closing. And see if maybe it's, just an urgency based thing and have a rehash strategy or person in the office to go and make those phone calls and make those sales.
I'm just going to be really frank about this. Every
Mhm.
single business owner that has employees on W 2 and is paying a salary plus benefits and taxes owns a stadium,
Oh yeah,
right? And every
yeah,
person is essentially a seat.
yeah.
And if it's an empty seat, what
You
is
lose
it
them.
causing you to do, right? I mean, this is, I think, you know, this is just me being an asshole, but
Fair.
there needs to be a significantly greater amount of accountability for business owners
Absolutely.
to understand that you bought the stadium, you own the seats, and while the ticket sales groups can fill so many of the seats, it's your responsibility to make sure every seat is full. So if it
Yeah,
costs you the same to have an empty seat, why not put a free customer in that seat who's going to buy hot dogs and beer and cocktails and a $25 Manhattan? I'm just
absolutely.
I'm just saying.
That's a cheap Manhattan, depending upon which place you end up at. But yeah, so like
Prices.
even Mark Cuban, right, when he took over the Mavericks, the first thing he did was sat in the middle of the sales floor, make phone calls to get you know, seats filled. He did the exact same thing. And you know, we have a customer that we're working with in Texas. I'm not going to share specifically who that is just for their privacy, but we were able to grow them 242% year over year in their HVAC department, something like 20 to 25, which by the way, ridiculous numbers, but I felt like throwing them out there because they didn't have very much of a department last year. So that's not all us, but that was, you know, I have to share that. But we average, you know, 20-25% growth in some of the off season with a lot of our companies. And the reason for that is all we're doing is actively making sure that they're filling seats, like you said. And so, yeah, our company that we're working with, we took them from an average of 60 to 65% capacity to over 100% capacity 3 days out. And they have a meeting every single morning that says, you know, here's our capacity, here's where we're booked, here's how many calls we need, here's, you know, the call offs that we're going to have over the next couple of days, and here's our plan to make sure that our technicians have a full schedule. And they have not had a day since we started that process where they've had a tech work a half day.
Yeah. This is this is always an interesting discussion. And it's different, you know, when I hear clients having conversations with our team versus clients having conversation with me because I'm going to have a
Yeah,
business owner mindset. And
right.
that means we're accountable jointly for coming together as a team and figuring out how to fill that board.
Yeah,
And you do have things that are out of your control. I mean, yes, weather's one. Yes, election year's another one. Yes, the fact that most consumers have the highest amount of debt right now than any other time. Yes, they're having issues with getting credit approvals. And yes, there is a entirely new search engine where consumers are avoiding Google and now operating in Perplexity or operating in an AI search like Chat. And they're not going to Google and they're not seeing your ads and they're not seeing your LSA and they're not seeing your Google Maps that you spent the last 10 years generating Google reviews on. And that's a
right.
fact. I mean, the
Yeah,
reality is that's going to be a bigger fact. So, this process, let me put things in perspective of why what you're training and coaching and providing is so critical. And you guys just bear with me for just a second, right? Gemini launched a new AI engine called Deep Research.
mhm,
So we can take Perplexity, we can take AI search and so forth, but let's just skip and go straight to deep research. Within Gemini Deep Research, you have the ability to ask the most simplex prompt. Find me an heating and air conditioning company in my area. Here's my address. This is where I live. I need, like, I'm in our condo here in Seattle, Washington. I have 5 levels. I've got 4 levels that all have a ductless system on it, so I can say the square footage. I can say it's 5 levels. 4 levels need heating and air conditioning through a ductless system. What my goals are, and then ask it to find me the best company based on what you, the AI search, believes I should consider in order to make my decision. And the deep research platform will analyze 100 companies in your local market. It will read their social media comments and messages and threads. It will read all of the reviews. It will read everything on your website. It will analyze every piece of public data that exists. It will then put together a scorecarding system in its own mind of all the factors that you should and could consider, and it will present you with one option, one, and the phone number to make the appointment or the link to book the call right now, including warranty information, financing information, reviews, customer sentiment, tone, products, your manufacturers, your featured products, and who you're doing business with, and the information on them. So
Wow.
sequentially go through and analyze everything. I mean, the
Yeah.
reality is, let's move forward 5 years. There'll be a lot of people that hate me for this one. 5 years from now, consumers will likely not be visiting your website at all. Your website may be just a content delivery network, and the content, the machine is feeding the machines, and you're not having anybody visit your website. You're not having anybody having to click an ad. I mean, that's quite possible. My
Right.
job as a business owner is to attempt to predict the future with all the information that I have so I can properly advise people how to prepare, right? So
Right.
now, how important is it if that's the case? And if there is no Google Ads, and if there is no LSA, and if there is no Google Business, and if no one ever actually has to visit your website because they're talking to their watch or a pair of glasses that can do all of that analysis in a matter of milliseconds and provide you with a single choice based on public information that's available on the internet. Now, how important is your database?
Yeah. Hugely. And every lead that comes through, you need to really maximize because you're only going to get so much opportunity before you get. It's almost like your social score is just going to dwindle if you're not capturing that business, and then
Have you
pushing on reviews too is going to be unreal.
have you ever
Yeah.
watched Black Mirror?
I no, everybody's told me about that, and they tell me it's ridiculous. But I heard some story about a dude with a pig, and I was like, I might hold off on that one. I don't know. So, but anyway,
You just made me think about it. So watch
yeah,
the Black Mirror episode, and it's about essentially a social score where you're walking around and everybody's got, their glasses or their contacts in, and it's instantly analyzing you as a human being based on, a million data points and then
wow,
giving you a score. So, you walk into a restaurant and it's got a two above your head and everybody's shunning you and you get served last. I'm not saying that that's the way it's going. However, I
right,
mean, watch Black Mirror, let that sit in that right now, today, through deep research, you have the ability to.
yeah. What a wild, what a wild thought. Yeah, I
And
can imagine. I can imagine that happening. The other piece of it too. The only way that we're going to combat a lot of that, I feel like, is by getting out in front of the customer and making that outbound attempt. Like if you don't have a team that's actively outbounding and hasn't well practiced their outbound skills,
yeah,
um, I would strongly suggest building a call center that can. Because at some point you might, because I worked with, like I said, I worked with a company in Kentucky when we first started off, and it was like I got there, they had no work on the board, their techs were sitting around, their sales guys were sitting in the office, the HR guy was typing some random thing up, and the business owner was like, my marketing, and that was kind of like, the extent of it. And so what we did was we took all of the field guys, we went and door knocked, and then we took the office staff and we gave them lists to make phone calls. And in those 2 days that that's 100% dedicated effort to cold reaching,
yeah,
with just a handful of people. It was somewhere like we took the revenue that we had done in those 2 or 3 days and we projected, like, had we done that for half of the year when the weather would permit and half of the year when maybe marketing wasn't working out, it would have added an additional $2.5 million to their top line revenue had they had the same level of result.
yeah,
And it was 100% cold outreach, and so there really is, like you said, there's no excuse. You bought a business, you have a business, you took on the responsibility of these employees. It's your responsibility to make sure that they have work. And it's your responsibility to make sure that you have enough money in the bank account to serve your clients in the future. So get on the phone or go
yeah.
stand outside and start flailing your arms like the tube guy. I don't know. Do something.
So I'm curious, what's your thoughts? Have you heard of AI agents?
So I have heard of AI agents.
Okay.
I've spoken to a couple of them. I think they're getting really, really close, really, really, really close. And so I think my thought would be in the future, you're probably going to upload scripts, training prompts, go through role play, and almost train your AI agent the same way you would a person. So now your call center, instead of being 10 live people is probably going to be one live person that's coaching and feeding the
Yeah.
AI, and the AI is going to take over the rest of that. So I would argue that you should jump on that sooner rather than later. But make sure you have a good, duplicatable, repeatable process that functions well, so that when the AI does get there, whether that's in the next 6 months or the next 5 years, doesn't really matter. You're prepared and ready to take that on
Yeah.
for anybody else.
I mean, right now, like when you guys first start with a company, we record every call, and
Yeah,
that data is serving as an amazing training ground for understanding what consumers want, what the process is, how calls are handled right now, whether it's inbound or outbound,
right.
concerns, but it's training models. So, when you guys come in, how critical? What are your thoughts? We've got companies that are like, I don't want to record my calls. I don't want to use a call tracking number, and I just want my regular phone number and people to call. It is what it is. And then on the flip side, we also have companies that we've got recorded data that is completely analyzed by AI. The customer sentiment, was it positive? Was it negative? Was it neutral? What was the initial intent? Was the intent resolved? What was the outcome of the call, and so forth? But all of this data, to me as a business owner, is wildly critical. When
Absolutely.
you go into these companies, what's the usual stance that you see, and what's your belief system on what the stance should be? How are they paying attention to these critical pieces of their business?
I would argue that most business owners that we talk to in the beginning know there's something wrong, but are unable to diagnose it because they don't have tracking mechanisms and they don't have data. And even if they do have the data, for example, like there are plenty of call recording softwares. There's Zero, there's uh, Zilla, Rilla Voice, whatever it is, whatever it's called, right? There's all these various things. What will happen is they'll get these tools, they'll put the tool, but nobody actually uses it, and that's the other problem. Is like now you just have data for the sake of having data, but nobody's actually looking at it, sorting through it, checking on it on a regular basis. So I would say 85% of the companies we go to don't have the data. 10% of those, 15% do have the data, and 10% of those um, don't actually use the data. So there's like a small substrata of people that actually are utilizing it. And I'll tell you this, they're not the ones that need our help. They're able to, diagnose their business through data. They're able to make the adjustments. They're able to do the coaching. They might use us for this here and there. But the vast majority of us, even if we have the data, we don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, and all that is technically is another AI agent that then takes all of the data from what you do have and then summarizes it, comes up with the anomalies, the cohorts,
Yep,
trends, patterns, and then provides you with a quick summary to be able to get in a coach and resolve the problem.
absolutely. Yeah, yep. And you had mentioned, you had said, you had asked a question early on that I didn't answer fully, but you said there's so many things that everybody focuses on. And what's funny is right now, everybody's paying attention to LSA and pay per click and this and that. But the actual PPC that they should be paying attention to are people, process, and cash flow,
Yep.
right? And that needs to be the primary focus, right? So your people, so your processes, you need data, you need a way to organize and structure those. Your people, you need to be able to coach them, have them buy into their vision and mission and your vision and mission, and then obviously you need cash flow. So if you focus on those three things, you'll be able to fix a lot of your problems.
So how do you get there? When you come in, how many companies do you go into that you believe are able to, at the staff level, are able to clearly define the vision of the business?
Okay, so just to make sure I understand your question 100%. So how many people at all levels of the business actually are able to clearly restate, recite, or understand the vision and mission of the business?
Yeah.
Practically none. Practically none. The few that do, again, are the ones who are doing exceptionally well. Those are the very large companies where you can go to them and you can ask them their core values and they'll be able to spit it out.
It's on
You can
their
ask,
wall,
it's on their wall, it's on their shirts. It's
right?
it's a part of their culture, and it's the same thing with the vision and mission. They actually know what it is. Many times we walk into companies and it's like, all right, everybody but the owner has a shot at answering this question. What's your mission and vision statement here? Crickets. Awesome. What are your core values? Crickets. And that's why you have a big cultural problem, because people are showing up to a job. They're not showing up to perform their function in a grander mission.
Yeah. have something to connect to, or it's just that it's a job.
That's it.
And that's why you're going to have empty seats performing empty tasks.
And here's the other thing. Your mission and your vision and your business is only going to be the most important thing to you. So you have to identify in each one of your employees what's their own personal mission, what's their own personal vision, what are their own personal core values. And that's actually what we do on every onsite. That's day one. That's all we do. We actually, most of the time, half the room ends up crying. And most of the time, we do no actual training outside of that for the first day. And the first day, it's 3 hours and it's developing their own personal mission, vision, and core values. And then we take that information and then we take the mission, vision of the company and the core values of the company. We make sure that everything aligns. And when we have that alignment, we win the hearts of the employees. And then now when we train, we're not just spitting information at them. We're talking about how we can effectively change their current state of life. And so that's how we've gotten past that, I'm sitting through a boring trainer and training syndrome and gotten into how can we effectively prompt change.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So as we go into 2025, if you were going to pick out 2 to 3 things, like right now, a lot of them are hopefully either revamping or reanalyzing whatever they thought their 2025 strategic plans were going to look like. Hopefully, identifying some Q1 rocks. What are the 3 to 5 things that they should be focused on to drive the greatest change per quarter? What would you say are things that absolutely should be part of that strategic plan?
Culture,
Mm-hmm.
development, leadership development, because you have what's called the law of the lid, and a lot of people forget about that. And you have you can't figure out why you're not accomplishing your large goals, and it's either because you're standing in the way of your management growing because you haven't grown, or it's because your management is standing in the way of your individual producers from growing because they haven't grown. So yeah, that culture and self development is going to be huge. Another thing is shift your mindset in the business planning because we all have these amazing lag measure KPIs and metrics, which is total revenue, average ticket, blah blah blah, total spend in ads, blah 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 blah. Look at the lead measures. What is the when things go wrong, when the marketing doesn't produce, what are the things that we do every single day to ensure that my board is full and that my guys are working? So really
Those
hyper focus on that stuff, the stuff you can control. Go ahead.
Those are legit. I'll push back a little on culture and I'll
Okay.
push a little bit on development. Let's unpack it a little bit because
Okay.
it could be if we put culture on a rock,
Mhm.
it's hard to measure,
Yeah.
it's hard to define, it's hard
Sure.
to move, right?
Absolutely.
So break it down a little bit more. Like if culture ultimately I want to improve my organizational culture, what's the rock? What's the smart
Yeah.
goal? Something tactical and measurable
Yeah.
that we implement in order to
Yeah.
accomplish the more superficial kind of ultimate goal of
So
improving our organizational culture.
yes, that's a great point. So you have to break it down much more specifically. There's 1,500 different ways, and only where you guys are struggling on culture. One thing might be like just communication in general and a feeling of management having the back of the employee, right? That might be part of the downfall in your culture. So something that you can set as like your Q1 focus is actually having one-to-ones take place on both the employee to direct supervisor, and then that tri-level where you have one level above step in on another. So getting my one-to-one schedule implemented, that might be part of it. If you already have one-to-ones, then maybe refining those one-to-ones and getting the process more employee centric, where we're focusing on their personal growth and their specific goals outside of work to get them highly motivated based on their values index, which is different than the next person, right? So when we do a training in macro, which is really really important, we have the whole room together and we have these certain competitions. It's really hard to deep dive into each individual. You might have somebody that values political value. You might have somebody that has an economic value, and then you might have someone that's more altruistic or theoretical or what have you. So now it's
Yep.
like, all right, I can't address that in a room of 30 people, but I can do that in my one-to-ones, and I can motivate from there. So maybe digging in that part of your one-to-one that makes sense. So
Yeah,
that does that answer your question for culture?
100%. 100%.
Okay.
I mean, in our world, our chief of staff, Melanie, one of the things she did right out of the gate was implement a quarterly feedback loop, not just an annual review.
Yeah.
And that was very simple, right? Three primary questions. Each of the quarters, there's very specific. One is just like you said, it's more of a back and forth feedback. How are you feeling? What are your goals? How can I better support you? Another one is scorecard and KPIs, performance.
Yeah.
Uh, a formal review, and then a cross-departmental, cross-functional review, upward, downward reviews as well, which is a much more complicated process.
Love
But
that.
I think what you're saying is systemic. And these are things that you can absolutely implement that will have an impact on your overall culture.
Absolutely.
Uh, I think one of the things that she did really well was she brought in a woman named Jerry, who is phenomenal. First of all, she's got an accent that I could listen to for like 100 hours, Australian accent.
Yeah. I love that.
On top of that, we didn't just take for granted that the management team, the senior management team, the directors, the team leads, and so forth we'd be able to just say, well, now we're doing this 360 review and these quarterly touch bases and so forth. But we train them on how to deliver feedback,
Right.
how to ask the right questions, how to set the tone, everything from even how do you show up in the meeting, your background, your posture, video cameras on,
Sure.
how do you open, how do you close, how do you acknowledge challenges, how do you document it, how do you record it, and then how do you follow up on it in the next one.
Yeah.
So I would say, just be really, really tactical. Sometimes I think that, we throw out these lofty goals and they're not specific, they're not smart, they're not measurable, they're not attainable, and we can't measure, you know, them. So challenge yourself in Q1 to really like ask why and ask how, and how are we going to get there? What are we going to do? What is the
Yeah.
tactical thing we can implement?
And
So
don't start on macro. Don't go real big with I'm going to do all these incredible. No, start really small, right? And like if accountability is something, well, I would say 90% of companies struggle in accountability, and most business owners and managers are enslaved by their employee in a lot of ways. They're held hostage by their employees, and so that could be a big fix for your guys' culture is to write out an accountability structure and then make sure that you hold each other to it. And it doesn't matter if it's a top performer, a low performer, if it's going to hurt to lose that employee or not, you hold everybody accountable. And next thing you know, people love you for that. They go, wow, thank you for helping me grow. Thank you for not, they say it in bold all the time. If you don't give somebody the feedback, you rob them of an opportunity to grow.
100%.
So,
No one,
same with accountability.
yeah. And if
Yeah,
multiple people are accountable, no one is accountable.
right.
Just
That's it.
one.
That's it.
There needs to be an owner, right?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think so you mentioned the second one, was it professional development, organizational development?
Yeah, so professional development and more so in like the self-development. So that probably actually goes a lot under culture. But if I'm a business owner, I'm gonna separate that. So one, I want to build a culture of people who are improving, and so I'm gonna create various programs and offer various ways for them to improve. And the cool part about doing something like that, like having a free book club or a leadership meeting or something along those lines, is then I get to identify the individuals who show up to that. And I got to make it inconvenient. It can't be like middle of your workday every day at noon, everybody gets a paid hour to do it. No, if you want to be a part of this, an hour before work, show up, an hour after work, show up. And the people
Mm-hmm.
that show up, now you go, okay, these are the people that are future leaders in the organization. These are the ones that are taking an interest in their own self growth. That's awesome. But more so, what I meant was like, if I'm an owner, I'm going to set a personal goal outside of the business goal, which is how am I going to grow this year? Where do I lack and where do I struggle? And one of the things that I discovered just in having this business is I'm not very good at verifying. I trust and I don't verify, right?
Mm.
And so holding myself accountable to verifying is something that I am going to work on this year. And I'm going to take the steps. I created like a task manager for myself so that it's not me asking employees or anybody has this been done. It's me checking to make sure that it's been done.
I
So
love that.
yeah,
I love that. This is the year of change. I will say that. I
yeah,
I we have an open forum random open forums in the company where the leadership team doesn't get to participate. They can
Oh yeah.
listen, but they
Right.
got to sit back. And this is really giving all the employees the opportunity to, um, without fear of anything, like share what's on your mind.
Right.
Like, where do you see us struggling? Where do you see we could do better? Where do you see, what do you see that we're not seeing as a leadership team? And I think those are wildly powerful. One of the things that came out from there was an individual had mentioned that they're very concerned that AI is going to take over all their jobs. And something that simple, like if they're not given the freedom to be able to share and, um, a safe space essentially to be able to, contribute that kind of information, like we could have never seen that. And
Yeah.
so there was more than just one that thought that way, but it was really simple. Like I could have just let them know my thoughts. Is my belief is that AI will not take over humans. My belief is that humans who leverage AI will take over the roles of humans who don't.
Right.
So this gives you an opportunity to say, are you going to lean in and upskill and start learning how to be more effective and efficient and productive? Are you going to lean in and figure out, what are the high leverage activities that only a human can do? And are there tools and systems and technologies that can take the heavy load and the burden off everything else? Or do we sit in fear?
Right.
And do we not make the move because we're scared to? So I think,
Absolutely.
as they go through that, this is find a moment that gives your team a safe space to be able to challenge you. I think you'd mentioned that a lot of I think you said a lot of owners are enslaved by their team, right? I
Yeah.
think there's the reverse as well, right? Is
100%.
the reverse is you have an owner that is stubborn and got their feet in the ground and doesn't want to advance and doesn't want to try technology, and they create this facade. It's the truth you tell yourself is the truth. It doesn't mean it's actual truth, but it's your version of truth, which
Right.
is, but we're different. But we're unique, and because we're different, we're not going to do X, Y, and Z. And I think that's troublesome for a lot of employees that see that the world is evolving, consumers are evolving, technology is evolving, and they feel like they should evolve as well.
Right.
And they are stuck with an owner that is stuck with themselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, we see that quite often. Um, where we've been doing this for the last 25 years. Yes, and you've been in the exact same place for the last 25 years. It's not a badge of honor, you know. So I'm with you. Yeah, it's frequent.
Yeah, that's fair. So out of the gate, we talked a little bit about what you could do as far as setting some rocks for improving your engagement with your team and setting some very specific opportunities for meetings, feedback, one-on-ones, setting goals, scorecards, performance measurements as well. Let's talk technology for them to even be able to utilize your services. Like, do you feel like the majority of the industry is now finally operating with a productive CRM system and capturing the necessary data and storing it appropriately and
No,
not sitting in, garbage out? Okay.
no. I would argue that most reporting is, again, even if they have the reporting, they're not using it. Oftentimes, like I don't know how many customers I know have, or clients of mine I know have switched from like a basic CRM. I don't want to name names because I don't know. It
Yeah.
feels dirty. But
That's
and
fair.
then switches over to somebody that I have good things to say about, which is like a Service Titan, right? You switch over to a Service Titan, it's like, man, Service Titan has all of the reporting. They have all of the data. They have everything that you could really ask for. Um, but I would say most companies are using 25% of their CRM.
Yes.
They're not maximizing the information that they have on their ads. They're not maximizing the information that they have on things like they look at the dashboard and they look at, okay, total revenue, and this is average ticket size, but they're not looking at like revenue per hour per technician and deep diving into the profitability of each technician. I might have one technician with a $400 average ticket, right? It costs me $150 an hour to roll a truck, and that guy generates $80 an hour. But I have another tech, $250 average average ticket, but he's generating $250 an hour. It's not the
Right.
same. It's not equal. But when I take it at face value, it's like, man, this $250 technician's got to go. He's costing me money. The other one's actually costing me $50 every hour you have him rolled out on the, out there,
Right.
And so again, it's like we have all this data and we're not maximizing it, but we need to be. So they need to have at least some sort of CRM, and they have to have a general understand. To answer your question directly, a general understanding of how their business is functioning, right? And the basic understanding I need is going to go back towards those lag measures. I need to know average tickets. I need to know conversion rates. I need to know how many technicians they have. I need to know how many leads that they can run on a regular basis. I need to know what percentage of capacity they're currently operating within, right? And they might not have that information offhand. They might not know how to pull it, but as long as I can pull it either from like a Sarah, a Service Titan, what's the other one? Zoho, or oh God, what's the other one? House Call Pro.
Florence House before. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they have one of those, then chances are I have access to enough data to make an impact. But what I'm more worried about, other than technology, is just mindset. Are you willing to do the extra work? Are you willing to make some changes? Are you willing to listen to an outside voice? Or do you want me to be like some other trainers where you hire me, I come out and we party the whole time, and then we just go our own separate ways, and you get like a little bit of a boost for a week, and then everything goes back to the status quo? If that's what you want, I'm not the guy. I'm relatively boring and very serious. you
Good
know?
a good cocktail and a motivational night, some social media content, and
Yeah.
yeah, you can AI in the jet right behind you now.
Perfect. Yeah. I'm not fun. I'm not going to party with you. It's going to be work the whole time. When we show up, it's, we start half an hour before your doors normally open, and then we go through classroom training. And then after that, I work with your team until you guys tell me to stop. And normally you guys quit before I do. That's how it's going to function. So if you're willing to put forth that work and effort, and you're willing to listen to your team and be open minded to their needs, then we're a good fit. If not, I'm really not a good fit.
This is why you and I get along. This is 100% like down and
Yeah.
dirty. Like it is what it is. This is not going to be easy. Norm, it's not going to be sugar coated.
Mm-mm.
This isn't fun. This isn't the party.
Right.
This is what it is. Like
It's just work.
it's just work. This shit's hard.
Yep.
You-
Yeah.
that- this is not. There's no easy button on this.
Nope.
Yeah, this is, and there at some point there's got to be a single source of truth, and it has to be real, right? People
Right.
say if I only change the way that I see the world would fundamentally change. You can create your own version of the truth in your head. Doesn't mean it's the truth. Like the truth needs to be like gravity. You fall off building, you hit ground, that hurts. Like,
Right.
that's,
Yeah.
right?
If you avoid the work, it gets harder.
Yeah. This
Same
is why
idea.
Yeah, this is why mindset. So our tagline, COO Group's tagline, I've been challenged on it 100 times because it's mindset technology network. And everyone's like, why isn't branding, web design, marketing, and advertising? No, because none of that works if the mindset isn't in place. If you're surrounded by a network that's feeding you fuel that's trash and
Right.
gaslighting everything, right? This is your network matters, your technology matters, your infrastructure matters. This
Yeah.
is, but it starts with mindset. I mean, I think I've had major manufacturers say that they're confused by our tagline. I'm like, that's okay. In your corporate office, how much time do you get to spend with all these entrepreneurs out here? Because promise you, this is not branding and website and marketing and sales coaching and all of these things that it starts. This is 100% mindset. Who you're surrounded by, what your influences are.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's first and foremost. So,
Absolutely.
all right.
Absolutely.
So this has been really good. We've got into lots of different things that are at least eye opening. Hopefully, part of people's consideration as they're rolling into 2020, put together your strategic plan, and you don't have a piece of your plan that is how are you going to maximize leverage and uh, whether it's your team or whether it's your database or a combination of both, right?
Right.
Um, Inefficiencies in your business and so forth. Hopefully, now you guys take a minute if you're watching this live or if you're watching the podcast on Apple or Spotify, you guys reach out to Devin, have a conversation. So, what are the different kind of engagement um, if someone needs some help, they're not sure where to start, they don't
Yeah.
even know what questions to ask. What do you advise?
Sure. Yeah. So, okay, that's a lot. So if you want to reach out, the best way is to just reach out to me directly. That's okay. Reaching out to me directly. So Devon, Devon at reignitesales.com. You can shoot me an email and we can have a conversation. We can schedule a Zoom call or something like that. You can text or give me a call. Actually, my phone number is 661-499-9691. And honestly, you can also find me on Facebook and shoot me a text there. But um, no question is off limits with me. So I don't. One of the things that's really important to me when starting this company was to help first and foremost, right? And
Mhm.
making money obviously is going to be a part of my vision because I need to do that with my family. But there, I'll still have conversations. I give a lot of stuff away for free. I want to hear from you and start building a relationship. And so if the question is, hey, I just need, a quick question answered or a tidbit of advice or maybe something that I can throw into my guys to hopefully move the needle a little bit, just reach out for that anyway with no expectation on my side for you to buy. I turn away just as many customers as I take on, just because again, you go through an interview process for me to want to work with you. I ask about your culture, your vision, what you've been doing, what your actual goals are. I research your level of work and quality of work because HVAC is my life. And so if you don't provide, and a really high bar was set by the first guy I ever worked for, Dylan Rucker, who owns All Heart Heating and Air down there in Lancaster, California, set a really high bar for what good quality HVAC work is. And so I believe in the integrity of the trade. And if you're not keeping up on either your customer side, the integrity of the actual trade side. If there is a gap missing, I will turn you away. If there's a level of integrity missing, I will turn you away. And if you're just not quite ready for it yet, you don't have the sophistication, I'll send you to the correct resources, but I'll probably turn you away. But I still want to hear from you, and I still want to try to assist as best I can. So please reach out.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate everything you're doing for the trades, and your commitment and dedication to entrepreneurism. I hate
Thank you.
calling them contractors because
Yeah,
they're entrepreneurs, right?
they
At
are.
some point in time, just like you did, you give up everything, all the security that comes with someone else carrying all the risk and someone else carrying all the weight and someone else carrying all that, and you decide to jump on your own
Right.
and fight the good fight. Man, I love entrepreneurs so much. I
Yeah.
love entrepreneurs. And I really appreciate everything you're doing for the industry and for the people that you work with, for our clients that need help, for our customers that are listening to this. You guys, this is a trifecta approach,
Yeah.
right? Building a business, you've got to put just as much energy on acquiring new business as processing the new business and your current customers as all of the missed opportunities in the past,
Yeah.
and your strategic partners and your vendors, right? You got to put them on the same pie chart with your team
Yeah.
because it's all interconnected and you are only effective as efficient as you are able and capable of making sure that you don't leave any of those critical elements of your business left to chance or ignored.
Absolutely.
So, any last minute pointers for what you would consider a catalyst to accelerate results and um, flip the script in 2025?
My biggest pointer is focus on the things that you can control, not the things that you can't control. It's really easy to get, like I said, stuck in that loop of, man, if only my marketing would do X, if only my sales guy was closing a little bit better, if only the finance company would approve more loans. A lot of those things are things that you can't control. So dedicate your efforts into the things that you can. Okay, my sales guy is not closing. We need to identify why, and we need to provide either training or resources or get a new sales guy. But take into, that's always a viable option, but take into account what you can control. Okay, I can't get enough calls on the board because marketing, no, we're not going to hear that. I'm either going to spend more money or I'm going to go for all those leads that I already paid for and I'm going to develop a plan to reach out to them. Because half the time they probably call you twice and you pay for those leads twice anyway, because the moment that they forgot your number and Googled you and clicked on your clicked on
Right.
something to give you a call again, you probably paid for that customer a couple times over, right? So be proactive in you reaching out to them and following up. If you don't have, anyway, point is control what you can. focus on that and forget about what you can't.
Yeah, I would agree. And if you are struggling with resources, make sure that you have turned over every stone about automation. Make
Mm,
sure that you are freeing up your people's time
yep.
to focus on the high leverage activities, which means you got to know what they are, right?
You know what? You just reminded me of something that's great. Take a piece of paper. So this is actually, I'm going to make sure this one's blank. It doesn't have customer information on it. And write A here, write D here, and write D here. It's the ADD method. Write down all of your tasks and put them into one of three buckets. What can I automate? What can I delegate? And what tasks can I destroy or get rid
Let's
of?
go. I'll take that. We're
Yeah.
replaying that moment right there. What can I automate? What can I delegate? And what can I destroy? I
What
was
can I
going to
destroy?
say totally different. That would be very bad.
Yeah. Yep.
What can eat a
So,
donkey? There we go.
yeah.
Make
Yeah.
that list. I'm telling you, that's the best actual piece of this whole podcast. ABCs and 1, 2, 3s change freaking everything. If you can get a simple system, an ABC or a 1, 2, 3, to be able to dissect, organize, and then take action, make decisions, that is a perfect one. What can
Yep.
I automate? What can I delegate? Go for it. Give me the last one.
What can I destroy?
Yes. All right. Well, we just got the 5-minute warning, so we're gonna wrap up.
It's so funny. So, whoever's watching or listening later, Jasmine's in the background. She's a big part of your overall group. I've noticed she's on every meeting that we have. She's involved in everything. It seems like just about. And so she said to me at the beginning of this, so I'm invisible. I'm not going to be here. Don't refer to me. Don't talk to me. And it has been an absolute challenge from now. Like obviously I just gave up, but I've been wanting to bring her into the conversation.
Look, you
She
guys
popped
can't
in. Did everybody get to see that? Was that a thing that everybody gets?
see it.
Oh my god.
It's not like we're talking to ourselves. She's literally just popped in.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
gave us this.
That's awesome. I love that so much. That's great. So,
Very good. Both you guys, Devin, thank you so much for the time today. We miss
yeah,
our
thank you.
co-host. I can't wait to have you back on. Hopefully, Chuck and Crystal will be here the next time. They'll
Yeah.
approach this from a different perspective, 2 different vantage points, get some more good ABCs and 1, 2, 3s out of you for everybody that's watching live. You guys go check out whatever your device of choice is. If you love Apple Podcast or Spotify or BuzzFeed or whatever all the different things are, I'm an Apple girl. Go download the show, leave us some comments, give Devin some feedback on some of the things that you think are really going to help you create a catalyst moment for your business in 2025. Make sure you guys reach out to Devin to get some help. Other than that, thank you so much for joining the podcast. We appreciate you, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you, sir.